Knysna Traders is a small gift shop situated along the garden route which specialises in small ornaments and tourist goods. The business also supplies other small traders in the surrounding area. The bookkeeper departed on a surfing tour, laka, and the owner asked you to help him to complete the books on 30 June 2011. Important that you know the dates. You may assume that all transactions are with VAT vendors and that all transactions are taxable supplies at a standard rate of 14%. So I did not have to put that in red there. You can read through the question. The VAT rate was provided, so you have to use 14%. Then they give you the journal totals. Now, all these totals are from the subsidiary journals for the month of June. They tell us the debtor owes so much, it needs to be written off, and here they give us balances. Now, they require from you to compile the following amounts for the accounts for the month of June 2011. The debtors control account, the sales account, and then in the B part, they want you to determine what was the outstanding balance in the VAT control account as at 30 June. So you also have to do the VAT control account. Now, the best is to do the VAT control account as you go along. Let's do the second bullet point first. The totals of the debtors list and the debtors control as at 31 May 2011 did not reconcile. The debtors list had a total of 45,230. A debtor inquired about a statement sent to him, and upon investigation it was found that a payment of 2,500 Rand made in May 2011 was debited in the debtors ledger. So the debtors control account was correct. But in the debtors ledger, instead, what should I have done? I should have credited this account with a 2,500 Rand. Instead of passing a credit, I passed a debit for 2,500 Rand. This was the only difference between the debtors control account and the debtors list as at 31 May 2011. So, now we can determine what was the debtors control account balance. Obviously, we have to rectify this mistake. So we have to credit it first, the debtors list, and then we have to credit it again in order to account for the 45,230, and then we would derive at our debtors control balance, the 45,230 less 5,000 of 40,230. Okay, now let's check what happened in our subsidiary journals. We had a sales column in the debtors journal. Now let's see whether we have any other totals that they gave us of the debtors journal. That was cash receipts, cash book payments, creditors, purchases, receipts, payments, sales returns journal. Okay, so this was the only column that they gave us from the debtors journal. What do we account for in the debtors journal? All credit sales transactions. So if they gave us the sales column and the value of the sales column as 61,000 Rand, we must know that the sales column in the debtors journal does not include that. Now we're in this question, and actually if I want to do a nice question, I would have done allowance for settlement discount as well somewhere in this question. But in this question, there is no allowance for settlement discount. Therefore, in our debtors journal, we would have had a total column, which is the debtors column, which include VAT. That is the invoice value, the sales invoice that we've issued, that would be that value. Then we would have had a sales column, which will be the VAT exclusive column, and we would have had a VAT column, which will then be the VAT included in the invoice. So 61,000 Rand was the sales column. So if they ask us to do sales as well, so the sales was 61,000 Rand. The amount posted to our debtors control account was the VAT inclusive amount. So 61,000 multiplied by 1.14, it gives us 69,540. The difference between the 61,000 and the 69,540 constitutes the VAT. So that was VAT output. So in our VAT control account, the difference there is 8,540, and that is the difference between the 60, or that basically is 61,000 multiplied Let's write it in here for you that you know what it is. 61,000 multiplied by 14%. There you are. Okay. Good. So let's do the next one. Then they give us the total column in the cash receipts journal. To what account do we post the total column of the cash book receipts journal? To the bank account. The sales column in the cash book receipts journal. The sales column in the cash book receipts journal. Now that obviously constitutes cash sales, and that needs to be posted to our sales account. There's our cash sales of 42,250. Now, before you jump to any conclusions and just add 14% and add it to our VAT control account, let's just see what other information they gave us about the cash book receipts journal. They gave us the debtors column in the cash book receipts journal of 37,849. Now, what does the debtors column in the cash book receipts journal represent? That represents the amounts that we've received from debtors in the month. So that 37,849 we can post against our debtors control account bank 37,849. Remember that sales somewhere in the back of your mind. Then they give us creditors, they give us in the cash book payments, debtors column in the cash book payments journal, total column, purchases, VAT. Here they give us the column of the VAT column in the cash book receipts journal 10,959. Now guys, this cash sales in the cash book receipts journal, the VAT on that cash sales would have been recorded in this total column of VAT in the cash book receipts journal. So therefore, I'm not going to take the 42,250 and multiply that by 14% and post that into our debtors in our VAT control account. Why not? Because that cash book or cash sales amount does not represent all the items in the cash book receipts journal that attracted VAT. And for that reason, and you can work it out, 42,250 multiplied by 14% equals 5,915. But the VAT column in the cash book receipts journal totaled 10,959. So this 5,900 Rand, which is the VAT on the 42,000, is included in this amount of 10,959. So I'm only going to post this 10,959 to my VAT control account. And that is VAT output. Cash book receipts, it's income, so it's always VAT output on income. 10,959. Great. I also saw here debtors column in the cash book payments journal. Now, when will there be a debtors column in the cash book payments journal? That is for RD checks, that is for any adjustment entries that we want to pass against debtors. So therefore, that 3456, it was in the payments journal, so bank was credited, so that must be a debit against our debtors control account, 3456. Good. What do we do with the creditors column in the cash book payments journal? That was payments we made to our creditors. There's no VAT implication there. Total column in the cash book payments journal, what does that constitute? The total of all amounts that was posted against our bank account. So there is no VAT there because they give us the VAT column of the cash book payments journal separately here. So included in that total was VAT, and they gave us the VAT 7982. It's in the payments journal, so therefore it must be VAT input. It is cash book payments journal 7982. Good. Total column in the creditors journal. What does that constitute? And then they give me just underneath that purchases column in the purchases journal. Guys, the creditors journal and the purchasers journal is one and the same journal. It is just different names for the same journal. And actually, I don't know why they actually use this, and this is just to test whether you realize that they are talking about the same journal. Now, what do we post in the creditors journal? All credit purchases for the month. Now, is it possible that we do not only buy inventory on credit? Yes, it's very possible. What do we post to the purchases column of the purchases journal or the creditors journal? Only the inventory that we've bought during the month. But what if we have bought other stuff like stationery, for instance, during the course of the month on credit? Stationery is something that we consume, that we use. It's not a trading inventory item. So therefore, stationery probably will have its own column, or it would have been in the sundry column. It means it would have been posted separately to the general ledger. So I can't take the total of the purchases column if they give me the total column of the creditors journal, because the total column will constitute the invoice value of all credit purchases and transactions for the month of June. So all those, because it's the invoice value of 76,323, and because they tell us that all the transactions are done with other VAT vendors, it means that that 76,323 constitutes the total amount of all invoices. So I must use that amount if I want to determine the VAT input that I could have claimed for the month. So in my VAT control account, I will, for VAT input purposes, I will take my 76,323, that's the invoice value, divided by 1.14 to work back to the VAT exclusive value, multiplied by 14% to get the VAT on those invoices, and that is an amount of 9373. Good, then they give us here, in the last line, total column in the sales returns journal. What is the total column in the sales returns journal? That is the value of credit notes issued to debtors. Now, that 4450, that credit note value, will be posted in total to our debtors control account. It is a return, so it reduces our debtors control balance with the 4450, the sales returns. But we also have to account for the VAT included on that credit note. So also in our VAT control account, we would have had on the debit side, because now it is the opposite of the sales transaction, so it must be VAT input. Sales returns 4450 divided by 1.14 multiplied by 14%. So you take out the VAT first to get the VAT exclusive amount, and then you multiply that by 14% to get the VAT on the transaction, 546. Good. A debtor owed to 622 is irrecoverable, and the owner decided to write off his debt. So in the debtors control account, I will take out the full debt of 2622. My credit losses accounts, oh, please don't use bad debts. Credit losses. In the credit losses account, expense account, I would have posted the VAT exclusive amount. They don't ask me the credit losses account, but the VAT input on that amount I have to put in my VAT control account. So 2622 divided by 1.14 multiplied by 14% gives us 322 Rand. Our debtors control account we can now actually balance off, and that will give us a final balance at the end of the month of 68,305. You don't have to balance off sales. Oh yes, our sales returns. Oopsie, I nearly forgot about that. The total here is 4450. Now you could have posted it to a sales returns account, but at the end of the month you would have transferred your sales returns amount or account balance to your sales account. So that 3904 is the VAT exclusive amount of the sales returns. Our VAT control account we can balance off now, and you will see that we have a credit balance at the end of the month of 1276. So this B part of the question asks you, you have to indicate whether the entity owes the receiver of revenue money regarding VAT, or whether the source owes the entity any VAT back. So is the VAT input more than the VAT output, or is the VAT output more than the VAT input? And clearly here the VAT input is more than the VAT output, so they actually owe the receiver of revenue a credit balance liability 1276. Guys, this is a very nice question to test whether you understand the working of the subsidiary journals, whether you understand all the different columns in the subsidiary journals and what the impact of those columns are on general ledger entries. So please go and have a look again here. If I would have asked you this kind of question in the exam, I would have made it slightly more difficult because I would have added a column or an item called allowance for settlement discount in this whole equation, both for debtors and creditors. And then I would give you the same type of scenario and you had to complete the same type of general ledger accounts. So make sure that you know what is the impact. If I only gave you, let's say, not the sales column in the debtors journal, but I gave you the allowance for settlement discount column in the debtors journal and ask you the debtors control account. So you must be able to work from that totals backwards to a total that you need in order to complete these accounts that we are asking.